Hi everyone, my name is Robin and welcome to Rebalance Pilates at Home. In today's Pilates video, we're going to be taking a look at back pain. Now this is a general back pain or chronic back pain class. So this is not specific to if you have a disc herniation or if there is a nerve impingement, you're feeling tingling or numbness down your leg. We would do different exercises for that. This is going to be for like when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling pretty tight in your low back and that tightness just doesn't really seem to go away during the day. So you're just always kind of generally in pain. So I'm going to show you a few different exercises that we can do to help alleviate some of that tightness in the back. There's a few different things that we need to look at. The first thing we need to look at is posture. Then we're going to look at some core support and core engagement exercises, and then finally some mobilization exercises because we do want to stretch the tissue around that tightness in the back because that will help alleviate that pain. So when it comes to posture, we want to essentially have what we call a neutral spine, which is like a clean slate. It's a standing position where I'm not putting overtly too much load on one joint over the other. The load dispersal through my body and through my joints is really even. When we stand unconsciously, we have a tendency to kind of like maybe sink into the hip a little bit, which is not really helping my posture here, as you can see, or we can often sink in our hips. So my pelvis is sinking on top of my femur bones, it's pushed forward, my ribs are sliding back, my head is forward, and I'm actually locking my knees out. I know you can't see that, but I'm locking my knees out. This is going to cause a lot of pain in my back because this position tightens the tissue in my back. It lengthens my abdominals. So now my abs can't properly engage to support my spine. And it's going to cause a lot of discomfort for my neck and shoulders because my head is being pushed forward. So when we're talking about ideal posture or that tension-free clean slate posture, we're looking for equal load dispersal up through the body and through the joints. So the first thing that I want you to do is we're going to start with our feet because it's very important what is happening at our feet and how we're holding our weight on our feet. Ideally, we want to be equally weighted, but we also want to be standing over our ankles. When I'm sitting into my pelvis like this, I'm sitting into my heels more. And so that's not really going to be that helpful in terms of how my bones are aligned and how the load is going up my body. So I want you to come to standing. And we're just going to gently rock between the heels and the toes. And you can feel when you rock into the heels, you might want to fall backwards, so be careful. And the same forward into the toes, you might feel like you want to fall forward. So I just want you to gently sway between the heels and the toes until you eventually come to this just kind of middle ground between those two extremes. And that ideally is over the ankle joint itself. Okay, so if I'm thinking of my foot as a tripod, I've got my big toe, my baby toe, and my heel on both feet. And I want to think of all three of those points, or all six of those points if I'm thinking of both feet, connecting equally into the floor. And I can feel like I'm standing over top of my ankles. Next comes my knees. It is really easy to lock the knees out. So right now I've locked my knees, and you can see that that responds in my spine. Now I'm again, super tight in my low back. I'm pushing my ribs forward, but I can also lock my knees out when I sink into the hips. Ideally, we want to have a little softness behind the knees, okay? It doesn't mean that I want to bend my knees entirely. This is like a very, very bent knee, but I do want to have a little softness there. That way the energy can, again, weight dispersal, can easily go up through the joint. Then we're going to talk about the pelvis. Now, the pelvis is really important, and I've got my skeleton here to help. Here's my pelvis. At the base of my spine is a bone called the sacrum, and it looks like a triangle, and the sacrum supports the entirety of my spine. That sacrum also connects into my hip, or my pelvic bones. So this whole structure becomes really important with posture and pelvic stability and core strength, because we really start at the foundation, and this is like the foundation of the spine. So ideally, I want to have a little bit of a crease at my hip joint, okay? So you can find your hip joint if you find your hip bones, and then you'll sort of walk your fingers maybe like a couple of inches down. There's this crease that goes down toward the pubic bone. That's your hip joint or your hip crease, okay? And we want to have a crease there. We want to have a softness there. So I want you to place your hands there. And what I want you to do is tuck your bum under. Like push that pelvis forward and feel how that musculature got really hard. Now, let the bum relax back. It doesn't mean that you have to like stick it back like that. You're just letting it relax, okay? And feel, again, you're over top of your ankles, your knees are soft, your pelvis is soft, and now the hip crease feels a little bit gooier. That's what we're looking for, is that crease. Now, just by allowing my pelvis to relax a little bit over top of my knees, over top of my ankles, that allows my rib cage to live over my pelvis, which is what I'm looking for. I don't want my ribs back here, and I don't want my ribs forward. I want them living over top of my pelvis, and then my head is now in a much better position to be over top of the ribs. It's not forward or too tucked back. So it all connects, and it all starts with our feet. So again, to review, we want to stand over the ankles. We want to have a softness in the knee, a softness in our hip crease. So easiness in the bum. I'm not gripping or squeezing my glutes, and easiness in the bum. Ribs over top of pelvis, and the ear in line with like the shoulder. So the head is just gently resting over top of the rib cage. Okay, so that's the postural position that we want to work in as we start to engage our core. So now we're going to talk about core engagement. All right, it is time to start talking about our pelvic floor and core activation. So what is the core? Okay, the core comprises of 4 main muscles. Our pelvic floor, which lives at the base of our pelvis, our abdominals, these little muscles called multifidi, which run up the spine, and then our diaphragm at the top. I liken our core to a house. So the foundation of my house is the pelvic floor, and that is at the base of the pelvis. Now, everybody has a pelvic floor. Men, women, those identify as male or female, those identify as neither. You all have a pelvic floor. Everybody has a pelvic floor. So it's important that we understand how to engage that musculature through our breath in order to have supportive core structures. All right? So the pelvic floor connects at the pubic bone, at the tailbone, and then the 2 sit bones. And the sit bones live at the base of each side of the pelvis, kind of where the bum cheeks are, okay? And like any muscle in the body, it can be trained to work. So it is the foundation of our house. It is the literal floor. And like a real house, if your foundation isn't strong, if your foundation starts to sink, what happens to the rest of the house? The house starts to sink. Nothing else really works well. So when we can get our pelvic floor to activate properly, the rest of the house is going to function well and stand tall. The walls of our house are the abdominals. So they wrap around our center, and when we exhale, the deepest of those abdominal muscles pulls in towards the center of the spine, and it helps to support our spine. We've got our chimney. Those are the little multifidi muscles. So those muscles run in between each little vertebrae that goes up our spine and helps to support our spine. And then finally, the roof of our house, which is the diaphragm. Now, what's really neat is that the diaphragm and the pelvic floor work in synchronicity with one another, or they should work in synchronicity with one another. So when we take a breath in, our diaphragm flattens and widens. Our pelvic floor does the same thing. When we take a breath in, our pelvic floor should feel like it is spreading wide. When we exhale, the diaphragm pushes the air up. It recoils and pushes the air out of the body. The same thing or the same movement happens with pelvic floor. When we exhale, our pelvic floor should pull in and up. So we need to link these two movements so that we can effectively strengthen our pelvic floor, and it becomes very important with movement to be able to find that engagement. So pelvic floor is very mysterious to most people. Birthing women or birthing people can typically find it easier because we are carrying a baby and we're often told to do Kegels, but everybody has a pelvic floor. So I'm going to give you some cues to help you find that engagement, some visual cues to help you find that lift and engagement. So the first cue I'm going to give you is that of a jellyfish, okay? So a jellyfish, when it's spreading wide, it lowers in the ocean, and then when it pulls up or domes up, it pulls up towards the sea or the top of the sea, and then it flattens and it pulls up. So it's a great image for what our pelvic floor is doing. So we're gonna do that together. We're gonna take a breath in and we're gonna think of that jellyfish spreading wide. And as we exhale, we're gonna pull the jellyfish in and up. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling, or I'm imagining that I'm pulling the musculature between my pubic bone, my tailbone, and my sit bones in and up, or I'm thinking of pulling those four bones together. And then I'm gonna let it release. So I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna take a breath in, jellyfish widens. As I exhale, pulling up through that pelvic floor. Another image I'm gonna give you is that of a clock face. So if I have 12 o'clock on my pubic bone, 6 o'clock on my tailbone, and 3 and 9 o'clock on my two sit bones, when I take my breath in, I'm gonna imagine like one of Dolly's melting clocks, and those numbers spread wide. And as I exhale, I'm gonna pull those numbers in towards the center of the clock. Then I'm gonna inhale, let those numbers widen, and exhale, pull those numbers in towards the center of the clock. Another image is walking into a cold lake. So when you walk into a cold lake, when that water hits the testicles or hits that groin area, we tend to pull in and up. That is your pelvic floor activating. So we're gonna take a breath in and we're gonna imagine that we are walking into that cold lake and feel that pull in and up of that musculature. Inhale, let it release. Exhale, cold lake, pull it in and up. Okay, so there are some images for you to help you find that pelvic floor activation, lift and lower. You can practice that with your new posture. So weight equally across the feet. We're standing over the ankles, softness in the knees, easiness in the pelvis, ribs over pelvis, head over ribs, taking a breath in. Exhale, pulling in and up jellyfish. Inhale, widen. Exhale, jellyfish, lift. Inhale, widen. All right. If you are still having trouble feeling that pelvic floor activation, if you're doing it correctly, you can always see a pelvic floor physiotherapist. They are the ones who are going to give you the best information on how your pelvic floor is functioning. Okay, so now that we have sort of that posture idea down and the pelvic floor breath down, we're gonna start to look at movements. All right, so make sure you've got your mat out and we're gonna come onto our back. We're gonna start with, again, a little postural awareness and a little core engagement here. So I wanna have that idea of the neutral pelvis here on the mat, just like I did when I was standing, that tension-free position. So I'm gonna place my hands in a triangle on my low abdominals. My fingers are towards my pubic bone, my thumbs are underneath my belly button. And I'm gonna gently rock back and forth. So I'm gonna rock back, feeling my back flatten against the mat. So my fingertips feel like they're a little higher in the air. And then I'm gonna let that go. And then go the other way. So now my tailbone gets nice and heavy and I can feel the space in my low back. And then let that go. Now what I want you to be careful of is that you're not just tucking your bum, squeezing your bum and jamming your back in the mat, or jamming your tailbone in to lift really high into your spine. That is unnecessary. We're being a little bit more subtle than that. So it's just keeping the glutes and the hamstrings really quiet, or as quiet as you can. You're just going to gently rock the bones of the pelvis back and forth. We're not really worried too much about muscles right now. So you're going to make that movement smaller and smaller between those two extremes, like we did when we were swaying back and forth on our feet, until we find a happy medium between those two extremes, and that is your neutral pelvis, okay? It's that tension-free position where you're not feeling like you're gripping into your ribs or your neck. You don't feel like you're gripping your low back, your glutes, or your hamstrings. It's all feeling pretty easy. So from here, we're gonna go into a couple of pelvic floor breaths because we're in a new position. So you can think of your clock face. Your pubic bone is 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock is your tailbone, and 3 and 9 o'clock are your two sit bones. As you take your breath in, that clock widens. And as you exhale, we're going to pull up through that clock. Inhale, let it widen. Exhale, feel the numbers of the clock pull in and up towards the center of that clock. Inhale. And as I do this, I'm not changing my pelvic position. My pelvis is staying really quiet. So every time I exhale, I'm not tucking my bum under and jamming my back into the mat. I'm trying to keep that tension-free neutral. This takes practice. Do stick with it. This is the foundation of the work, and it will help you get out of pain. Don't give up on it. Even if it doesn't feel like you're doing anything right now, just keep practicing. We're going to do 2 more breaths like this. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, widen the clock or the jellyfish. Exhale, walk into the cold lake. Feel the numbers pull to the center of the clock. Feel the jellyfish floating to the top of the sea. We're going to move into some hip lifts from here. We want to start to strengthen our glutes. Glute strength and glute activation is very important in getting out of back pain because our glutes support our sacrum, that that triangular bone that I showed you at the beginning of the class. And that triangular bone supports our entire spine. So strong glutes equals a strong and supported back. So we're going to have our feet bum cheek distance apart. We have our neutral pelvis. I'm going to take a breath in, pelvic floor opening. As I exhale, I'm going to pull up through the pelvic floor. I'm going to squeeze my bum here and use my glutes to lift my pelvis up towards the sky. Then to come down, I'm going to lead with my tailbone or lead from the top of my bum cheeks, slowly softening through my glutes. And here's my hip crease. We talked about that hip crease when we were standing. I want to create that hip crease. So sometimes it's nice to put your hands right into that crease at the hip joint. Take a breath in, exhale, squeeze the glutes, pull up the pelvic floor, push the hips up. You can feel that the crease disappears a little bit. And then as I slowly come down and release the glutes, you can see that I'm folding my hips over my hands. I'm finding that hip crease. Let's do it again. Take a breath in. Exhale, walk into that cold lake, pull up through that jellyfish as I press the glutes up to the sky, and then inhale, slowly coming back down. I'm keeping my ribs in line with my pelvis and lower. I like to sometimes put my thumbs on my ribs and my fingers on my pelvis, and then I can feel that I'm in the same line. Let's do 3 more. Take a breath in, exhale, engaging the glutes, pressing up, inhaling down, exhale up, inhaling down, and you want to breathe out through the mouth. There's more power to your diaphragm and pelvic floor when you breathe out through the mouth. And coming back down. We're going to move into something called toe taps. So we're challenging our pelvic stability against movement here. I'm going to take a breath in. As I exhale and pull up through the pelvic floor, my leg comes to tabletop. I'm going to take a breath in. As I exhale, I'm going to pull up through the pelvic floor, a little bit of a bum squeeze, and I tap my foot down and lift it back up on my inhale. Exhale, tap down. Inhale up. So I have my leg at 90 degrees. Exhale and inhale. And I'm trying to maintain my neutral pelvis, that supported pelvis. And as I do this, I want to avoid kind of arching and sinking, arching and sinking. If you're doing that, you're not engaging from those deep abdominal muscles. You're using your back to do everything, and it's just going to exacerbate your back pain, okay? So really take the time to feel the pelvic floor engage. Inhale, release. We're gonna do 2 more on this side, and then we're gonna go to the other side. Exhale, inhale up. Bonus 1 to exhale and come down. Let's do the other side. We're gonna inhale, prepare. Exhale, pull up through the pelvic floor as you lift that leg to 90 degrees. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, squeeze the bum, tap it down, lift it up. We're gonna do 7 more. Exhale. Inhale up. Exhale. And up. Exhale, pelvic floor pulling in and up. Inhale, let it release. Inhale, release. 2 more here. Exhale. I'm trying not to get too grippy in my rib cage. Last one. And up. We're going to do an extra one to come down. I'm going to show you a quick progression, okay? So going back to the first leg, breath in. Exhale, pelvic floor, bring the leg to tabletop, and I'm going to bring my opposite arm up. Take a breath in. As I exhale, I'm going to reach my arm back. Inhale, lift it up. Let's do 2 more like that. Exhale. Feel how your core works a little harder when we add that arm. We're going to do 3 more, but I'm going to add the other arm. Feel how the core works harder as both arms are up. So this is a progression. I need to find more of that pelvic floor activation. Bonus exercise to bring the leg down and then the arms down. Let's do this on the other side. So take a breath in, exhale, bring the leg up. Let's bring the opposite arm up, breath in to prepare. Exhale, pulling up through that pelvic floor, tapping the toe down, reaching the arm back, and inhale it up. Exhale, reach back. Inhale up. 1 more time like this. Exhale and back. Lift both arms. Exhale, pelvic floor pulling in and up, that clock face. Widening, that clock face pulling in towards center. That jellyfish pulling up to the top of the C. Inhale, wide, last one. Exhale, bringing the leg down, and then the arms down. Your final progression here is to a long leg. Long legs are heavy. Legs are heavy in general, but a long leg, we consider this to be a long lever. It is more load for your pelvis to support. So this is once you feel really supported in your short lever or toe tap leg, okay? Take a breath to prepare. Exhale, bring the leg up through tabletop, and then you're gonna extend it, and it can 100% be bent if you don't have the flexibility. That is fine. Take a breath in. On the exhale, we're gonna pull up through that clock face, give the bum a little squeeze as I lower the leg. Inhale, lift it up. Now your leg does not need to touch the floor. Exhale, and up. It can go to your knee, and up. If that is as far as you can go and maintaining pelvic stability. If you feel that going down to the floor leads to a lifted back, that's not what we want. Do 2 more. You want to be able to send the leg only as low as your pelvis can support, or your abdominals can support your pelvis. Last one, bend and bring it down. Let's do the other side. Bring the leg up and exhale, lower and lift. Now, as you get more comfortable with this and stronger here, challenge yourself again with the 1 arm. Exhale. Or both arms. Exhale. Let's do 2 more with the arms down, or 1 arm up, or both arms up. It's up to you. And then bend the leg and come down. All right, we're gonna move on to our side. Side lying work is very important. It helps to strengthen the side of the bum, which again helps to support the pelvis, which helps to support the entire spine. Often, if you have back pain, doing some side lying work, some side glute work, will help to alleviate that pain, okay? So you're going to come onto your side, and we're going to start with an exercise called the open book. So I want to make sure that my hips are one on top of the other, and you might want to put a little pad underneath your rib cage if you feel that you're like sinking into the floor. Oh, and I should mention, when you're on your back, if you're looking like this during all of your work, put a head pad or a little pillow underneath your head just so that your neck is supported, your head is supported. So when you come back to do the video, please do that if you found that your neck was unsupported. So you can put something underneath your waist just to help keep your spine in alignment. And I've got my legs coming out about 90 degrees. I'm gonna take a breath in. On the exhale, I'm gonna squeeze my bum and I'm gonna lift my leg up. And then I'm gonna lower it down. I can still think of my pelvic floor here. Exhale, lift, and inhale, release. It is harder to feel pelvic floor here, so don't worry about it if you're not totally feeling it. Just keep kind of thinking to yourself, okay, I'm gonna exhale, I'm gonna pull up through that clock, and then I'm gonna inhale and I'm gonna let it release a little bit. Exhale up, giving the bum a squeeze and release. So you really do wanna make sure you're working from your bum here. I like to give my bum a little squeeze first and then continue to engage through my glute as I lift my leg. I have very lazy glutes. They need a lot of help to function, so I have to give them that head start. It's almost like you gotta turn the key before you drive the car, right? So engaging that glute is turning the key, and then I can drive the car and lift the leg. We're gonna do one more time like this. Exhaling up and down. Now, we're going to add a little bit more movement here. So we're gonna give the glute a little squeeze and we're gonna bring the leg up. I'm gonna flex my foot, squeezing my bum, I'm gonna reach my leg long to the end of my mat, and then I'm gonna bend my knee back into my chest. Squeeze my bum, reach out through my heel, and then I'm gonna bend my knee and pull it in. Exhale, reach, inhale back. Exhale, reach, inhale back. We're gonna do 3 more like this. Exhale, reach, inhale back. How's the side of the bum doing? Good. You wanna work from your glute to extend your leg. You're gonna hold your leg out there. We're gonna lift that leg up and down now. So just like how we went from a bent leg to a long leg when we were on our back, short lever, long lever, same thing here. We had a short lever as we were lifting and lowering, and now we're doing a long lever, lift and lower, which is gonna be more work for your glute. 2 more. Inhale down, last one, and then you're gonna bend the leg in and lower it down. That is level 1. When you're ready to progress, you're going to come up onto your forearm. You wanna make sure the elbow is right underneath the shoulder, and this is gonna help strengthen your obliques. We need to strengthen obliques, again, to support and stabilize our spine. So you're gonna be actively pushing the floor away. You don't wanna sink into your rib cage. You wanna be pushing the floor away. We're gonna be doing the exact same exercise. So you're gonna squeeze your bum, you're gonna lift your leg and down. The challenge now, though, is to keep this rib lifted. It's gonna be really easy to start sinking into that shoulder. Keep pushing that floor away. It's also gonna be really easy for your knee to start dipping down as you get tired. Try to keep that knee high. Try to keep that knee a little higher than your ankle or in line with your ankle, okay? Push that floor away. Did you lose that support? 2 more, squeezing the bum and down. Last one. Then we're gonna come up, flex the foot, we're gonna reach that leg out long and then come back in. Again, push that floor away. Make sure you feel like that bottom rib wants to reach up to the ceiling. You wanna pretend that you have like a mountain peak under your armpit so we're not sinking into that shoulder. We're gonna do 3 more leg reaches. And if this is too much, lie down. You can totally take this triangle of support, this oblique work out of it. We're gonna keep the leg long and we're gonna lift and lower from here, up and down. Take it out if it's too much. Build up to it. So how's that side glute feeling? Starting to feel that work? 3, 2, 1, and then come in and lower down. Now, before we leave this position, we are going to do a side plank because again, it's important to strengthen those obliques. We're going to do it on our forearm. I'm gonna bring my knees back a little bit. So now my knees are a little bit more in line with not like maybe just a little bit ahead of my hips. And I'm gonna take my top leg, placing it on the floor, and I'm just gonna turn the foot in, okay? Taking a breath in, on the exhale, I'm gonna squeeze my bum and I'm gonna lift that bottom hip up. And this is how we're gonna do our side plank, okay? So my elbow is still under my shoulder, my hips are square. You wanna be careful you don't start rotating back. Keep that top hip really forward, tummy is pulled in, and you can hold this for as long as you wanna challenge yourself. If it's starting to go into the neck, turn the head to look at the floor. Think of pulling up through that pelvic floor. You have to keep that pelvic floor and core active during this. You can't be letting it go between each exercise. 3, 2, 1. You're gonna lower that hip down. Come on up and give yourself a stretch, okay? Because that arm did a lot of stabilizing work, so you wanna give yourself that stretch. And we're gonna do this on the other side. So, lying yourself down. The hips are, or the legs are coming about 90 degrees out from the hip joint. The tummy is active. You're gonna give the bum a squeeze and we're gonna lift up and down, up and down. So all of this work, really important to help stabilize your spine, finding that core engagement. Exhale up, find that pelvic floor. Now I'm moving a little bit more quickly, but you can go as fast as you want. You don't have to be in time with me, or you can go as slow, more specifically, as slow as you want. And I think slow might be better. Hold up there, flex the foot. Exhale, press it out. Inhale, pull it in. Take your time with it. Feel that pelvic floor activation and in. Make sure that you're setting yourself up for success here. And 4, and 5, and 6, 7, and 8. Then we're gonna lower and lift the leg for 8. Inhale, exhale up. 6, squeeze the bum, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bend the leg in. Again, we're trying to keep that knee higher than the ankle and down. We're coming up for our second round of that. Making sure that the elbow is right underneath the shoulder. And we're gonna start with our open book. So I'm pushing the floor away, lifting under the armpit, squeeze the bum, lift the leg and down. Again, it's easy in this position to drop that knee. Try really hard to keep that knee up high. That's what's gonna help target that side glute, okay? Remember, give the bum a squeeze first, then lift the leg. So we're starting the car, then we're driving the car. 2 more. 1 more time. Flex the foot. We're gonna reach out and bring it in. Push that floor away. Are you starting to sink into that shoulder, into that neck? Push that floor away. Exhale, reach. Inhale it back. Stay strong underneath that armpit. Let's do this for 3, and 2, and 1. Then we have to lift and lower the leg. Now this side might already feel more tired than the other side did, because this side was working hard to stabilize your pelvis when we were doing this work. So it's already done some stuff today. 3 more, 2, 1, bend it in and down. We have to do our side plank. So we're gonna bring those knees back down a little bit. We're gonna take the foot, tuck it under, take a breath in, and on your exhale, squeezing the bum, lifting the hip up. Again, making sure that top hip is forward. It's gonna wanna roll back. So keep that top hip forward, keep those ribs pulled in, keep that core active. We wanna think of hugging around the waist. Squeeze that bottom glute. It's very important. Well, both glutes, but especially that bottom glute. And you can hold this for as long as you want. We'll do it for another 3 counts. 3, 2, 1, and then coming down, pushing yourself up, and just giving yourself a little side bend. All right, so to finish our little workout here, we're gonna take a look at some work. You're going to need a wall for some wall planks. All right, so you do need to have a wall for the following exercises. We're gonna start to look at some plank modifications. When you go onto a plank just on the floor, there's a lot of gravity like playing against you there that you have to push up against. If you are not properly stabilizing through your core and your glutes, then it can be actually quite painful for your back. It's not going to strengthen your core the way that I think you're hoping that it's going to. So it's important that you kind of progress to that point. So this would be the first progression to help you get towards the floor. And so I'm going to do a plank with my hands on the wall. Gravity is playing differently on the body here. I have my hands a little bit wider than my shoulders, and I am on my tippy toes here, okay? You can go flat-footed, but I'm going to be on my tippy toes. And I'm still thinking of pulling up through my pelvic floor, pulling up through the abdominals, and I am squeezing my glutes here. So other things I want to take into consideration, I want to make sure I'm not sinking into my shoulders. I want to be actively pushing that floor away. So this is a great way to start practicing your planking in a way that isn't going to stress your back out if that core support is not quite there. So, nice way to start to practice it. You can walk your feet out a little further and make that plank a little bit more challenging. So again, I'm still activating through my core, my glutes, abdominals are active, pushing the wall away from me, and I'm working my abdominals, but it's not in a way that is overly aggressive for my spine. You can then start to lower where you are in space. So my hands were here, now my hands are going to be lower. So a kitchen counter, for example, is a great place to get yourself back into a plank. And while you're waiting for your pasta to boil or to make your rice or whatever you're doing, plank on the kitchen counter and engage that core. Feel that pelvic floor pulling in and up, squeezing the glutes. And then from here, you can make your way down to the floor. So those are really easy ways for you to practice that planking work in a way that you can slowly strengthen the core. So by the time that you're down on the mat and you're ready to do those full planks, you are properly engaging and your back is going to be a lot stronger. We've got one last thing to look at, and those are squats. Okay, squats. Squats are an excellent way to engage your glutes, strengthen your glutes, strengthen the sides of your glutes, and there's a bunch of different ways that we can do this. So we're going to start with our feet a little bit wider than bum cheek distance apart. And I want to feel like I am, so again, I'm looking for that proper posture to start in. So I'm over top of my ankles. I have a softness in my knees, softness in the pelvis, so I'm not pushing my hips forward, ribs are over pelvis. As I start to bend my knees, I'm gonna reach my bum back, like I'm reaching for a chair behind me. And I still wanna try to keep my weight generally over my ankles. I might be a little bit more into my toes now, just given the angle of my body. I'm going to squeeze my bum to lift me up, and I'm going to bring my pelvis back over top of my ankles, not this. There is a tendency when we do squats to push the pelvis forward. I want you to instead focus on coming up to over the ankles. Here's my neutral. I didn't push my pelvis forward. I can think of opening my pelvic floor here. Exhale, coming up. Inhale, pelvic floor, widens, exhale, pull up through the pelvic floor, squeeze the bum, come up over the ankles. Let's do about 5 more of these. And 4, and I'm tracking my knees over my toes. And 3. And widen 2. And 1. And up. You can make this harder for yourself by getting a loop band, placing it above the knees, and then holding that resistance as you do your squats. So there's ways that you can make it harder for yourself. Finally, the last thing we're going to look at is a little bit of spine mobilization. All right, spine mobilization. So you've woken up in the morning, your back is pretty tight, or you've been standing a lot that day, maybe without the best posture, back is feeling pretty tight. This is what we're going to do to help release that. So we're coming onto our hands and knees. We're making sure that the knees are under the hips, the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulders are in line with each other, and you've got a little bit of core support. I'm gonna imagine I have a triangle at the back of my bum, my 2 sit bones and my tailbone. I'm gonna hinge my bum cheeks back, imagining that I'm widening that triangle, and then I'm gonna come back over top of my arms. So the tailbone is sliding upward as I do this, and I've got that little bit of core support. It's gonna be really easy to wanna tuck that bum under and round, but instead, I want you to think of that tailbone gently reaching up to the sky. It doesn't mean that you're sinking into your back like this. This is where that core support comes in. So the tummy is gently pulling in and up as you spread the bum cheeks wide. The kneeling hinge is a great way to open up that posterior tissue. That's gonna feel really, really tight. You can take that into a child's pose. So you're slowly going back in space. That tailbone is sliding up, but there is a point where the tailbone naturally starts to tip downward, and you're gonna let that happen naturally in its own time, so it's slow. Take yourself to a child's pose from there. You're gonna feel a huge stretch through all of this low back tissue, and it feels really, really nice. When you're ready, you're gonna come back up over your arms, and you can do that as many times as you like. The last thing we're gonna look at is a little cat stretch. So I'm gonna pull my tummy muscles in, pull up to my pelvic floor. I'm gonna let the tailbone round to the floor as I gently roll through the spine. Then I'm gonna slide my tailbone up to the ceiling, keeping a little bit of core support and lifting up through the chest into extension. So scooping the tummy muscles like someone's taking an ice cream scoop. I'm gonna start to round through the spine, and then sliding the tailbone free, rippling through that spine. A little bit of support in the tummy as I lift the chest. One last time, scooping through the tummy muscles. Let that tailbone round, let yourself round through the spine. And then you're gonna slide the tailbone free, ripple through the spine, and you're gonna open up through the chest. And there you have it. Some exercises that are gonna help strengthen your core, strengthen your glutes, and mobilize your spine. So hopefully that will set you on the course to back pain relief. And if you're interested, there are many other back pain videos on Rebalance Pilates at Home here on YouTube, and you can check those out. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and have a great day.